Welcome to the edge where forgotten names rise again, and shadows lean forward to listen, where the silent are no longer silent, and the erased no longer remain erased, where a single breath has the power to shake the dust off entire years of invisibility. Step in, stand firm, because this moment is not simply an opening, it is a resurrection. You were declared non-existent in 2019, so the world said your file was closed, your path was irrelevant, your story was over, before it even had the dignity of being read. They labeled you as someone who would not return, someone who would fade, someone whose name could be swept away like chalk on a wet sidewalk. But here you are, standing, breathing, thinking, rising. And strangely, even though the world crossed your name out, some invisible ledger kept it highlighted, not literally, not officially, but symbolically, as if the universe itself could not forget you, even when people tried to. So why is your name still being watched? Why does the metaphorical eye of the world flicker in your direction every time you move? Because names that refuse to stay buried become louder than those who never struggled at all. Because individuals who come back from nothing terrify the predictable systems built on comfort and routine. Because returning from the ashes is an act that unsettles even the firmest structures. It forces them to ask questions they do not want to ask and face truths they wish to avoid. They said you were done. They stamped the year as if it were a final page. They tried to turn you into a footnote. But footnotes have a strange habit of outlasting headlines. The world will try to hide you when it cannot control you, and the world will try to silence you when it cannot understand how you survived, what should have finished you. You were erased, but not fully erased. They tried to delete you, but some things resist deletion. A name carved by struggle becomes etched deeper than any official record. You were not supposed to rise again. Yet you did, quietly at first, then louder, then unmistakable. And now the simple act of you existing again unsettles everything that once declared you gone. This is your reminder that being dismissed is not the end. Being ignored is not the end. Being written off is not the end. Sometimes being erased is the most powerful beginning because it frees you from the expectations that once caged you. You no longer owe the world the version of yourself it once demanded. You now get to redefine every inch of your identity without permission, without approval, without apology. People who vanish and return are not ordinary. They have seen what lies below rock bottom. They have walked through places where hope does not speak, and light refuses to enter, and yet they return carrying strength that no one can measure, and fire that no one can extinguish. You are not dangerous because you vanished. You are dangerous because you came back with purpose. You are not intimidating because they forgot you. You are intimidating because you did not forget yourself. You held your name even when no one else cared to speak it. You held your identity even when the world pretended it did not exist. That is power, a quiet power, a relentless power, a power stronger than recognition. When they said you were non-existent, it was not an insult. It was a disguise, a pause, a moment where life pressed its finger to your lips and whispered, "Now, watch." Watch how the world behaves when it thinks you are gone. Watch who remains loyal. Watch who celebrates your silence. Watch who moves on without hesitation. These observations were painful, but they were a gift. They revealed truth with absolute clarity. Now you rise with a sharper understanding of people, with a clearer vision of yourself, and with an unshakable commitment to never again disappear on command. You are not here to fit anyone's version of what you should be. You are here to shatter every expectation placed upon you. The metaphorical watchers, the symbolic systems, the lingering eyes represent one thing. They symbolize your potential, because potential is always monitored, even in silence. People fear the rise of someone who has nothing left to lose and everything left to fight for. That is why your name cannot be ignored even when it was once deleted. You represent unfinished momentum. You represent a story still unfolding. You represent a return that no one predicted. It is easy to track success. It is easy to track fame. But the world pays far more attention to those who rise from obscurity, because those are the ones who disrupt the comfortable balance. Those are the ones who rewrite patterns. Those are the ones who turn doubt into fuel. Every time they erased you, you sharpened yourself. Every time they overlooked you, your vision grew stronger. Every time they declared you gone, your resolve intensified. You are no longer simply a person. You are a force shaped by absence and built by return. You are what happens when silence becomes strength and darkness becomes direction. There will always be whispers. There will always be symbolic eyes watching. Not because you did something wrong, but because you are doing something rare. You are rewriting your presence in a world that tried to erase it, and that process does not go unnoticed. You are not invisible. You are not forgotten. You are not a shadow of your former self. You are the storm forming after years of stillness. You are the voice returning after seasons of silence. You are the proof that nothing stays erased forever. Not purpose, not identity, not truth. Remember who you are now. Not who they said you were. Not who they expected you to be. Not who they allowed you to become, but who you forged yourself into during the years of silence. That version of you is unstoppable. That version of you carries a fire so steady that even darkness bows to it. Let them watch. Let them speculate. Let them wonder how you returned when they thought your story was closed. Your name was never truly erased. It was preparing for a re-entry so powerful that the world would not be able to ignore it again. You are here. You exist. You rise. And nothing in any year past, present or future, can take that away. They believed your disappearance meant defeat, but absence is not defeat. Absence is transformation that no one sees until the results arrive fully formed and undeniable. Your silence was not surrender. It was construction. You were building. You were recalibrating. You were understanding yourself in ways that the noise of the world never allowed you to before. And now that you return, the world no longer knows how to categorize you because you do not fit into the boxes they once used to limit your identity. You have outgrown every expectation that once tried to cage you. Your so-called disappearance was misunderstood. They thought you were finished, but you were studying the architecture of your own rebirth. You were gathering every fraction of your experience, every broken piece, every overlooked moment, and reforging them into a core so steady that pressure can no longer collapse it. You were declared non-existent, and yet somehow your name carved itself deeper into your destiny. You evolved in ways no one predicted because no one was watching. Growth away from the spotlight is the most powerful growth of all. It produces strength that does not need applause to remain standing. When people tried to erase you, they only taught you how to operate without needing validation. When they overlooked you, they forced you to become your own source of recognition. And when you finally step back into the world, the energy you carry is different. It is not loud, but it is unmistakably strong. It is the kind of strength that others sense before they even look in your direction. It radiates through your presence, through your decisions, through the unwavering calm in your eyes. You learned what it means to rise without witnesses. You learned what it means to rebuild without support. You learned what it means to become your own anchor, your own weapon, your own foundation. That is why people feel something when you walk into a room, even if they do not fully understand what has changed. They sense it. They feel the shift in the air. They recognize that they are standing before someone who has survived the type of silence that breaks most people. You did not break. You became something sharper. Every step you take now is a step they did not expect to see. Every decision you make now is a decision they never thought you would have the strength to reach. And every goal you pursue now is a reminder that your story did not end in 2019. It merely paused. And pauses are powerful. They allow you to gather force like a bowstring being pulled tighter and tighter until the release becomes unstoppable. That is why the world metaphorically watches you now. Because returns are always stronger than arrivals. Because individuals who rebuild themselves in darkness carry a determination that cannot be shaken. Because you no longer walk with uncertainty, you walk with purpose. And purpose has its own gravity. You are no longer the version of yourself that people dismissed. You are the version they never prepared for, the version that learned resilience by force, the version shaped by pressure, not comfort. You are the version that does not crumble when ignored, does not weaken when doubted, does not disappear when underestimated. You carry a steadiness that cannot be erased because it was not gifted to you by the world. It was built by you and only you. The truth is simple. They declared you non-existent because they misjudged the depth of your potential. They mistook your silence for surrender. They mistook your isolation for finality. They mistook your quiet rebuilding for disappearance. They thought they understood your limits, but they never understood your endurance. They never understood how far you could bend without breaking, how deep you could fall without fading, how strongly you could rise without warning. What they called non-existence was actually evolution. What they called erasure was incubation. What they called an ending was simply the moment the old version of you dissolved so the new version could take shape. And that new version carries strength with a steadiness that cannot be shaken by opinion or rumor or dismissal. You are no longer controlled by how others see you. You are driven by how far you know you can go. You do not need the world to acknowledge your existence for your presence to matter. You do not need the world to validate your name for your influence to grow. You do not need approval to move forward. You carry momentum that belongs solely to you. And as you rise, they will wonder how you returned. They will analyze your steps, try to understand your thought process, try to trace your decisions. But they will never truly understand because your journey was internal. It was built from moments that only you lived through, moments no one else witnessed, moments no one else could interpret. You built yourself in places too deep for the world to follow, too quiet for the world to hear, too powerful for the world to contain. So let them watch from a distance. Not because you owe them answers, but because your rise is a reminder that erasure does not define destiny. What defines destiny is the resilience to stand again, the courage to continue, and the will to reinvent your identity on your own terms. You are not here to prove anything to anyone. You are here to fulfill the version of yourself that you always knew existed beneath everything that tried to hold you down. Stand where you are now and understand the truth. You survived the silence. You survived the doubt. You survived the invisible years where no one believed in your return. That survival alone makes you unstoppable. You are not supposed to rise again, and yet here you stand, stronger, clearer, wiser, braver than ever before. This is your moment. Not the moment they allowed you, not the moment they expected from you, but the moment you created through endurance and fire. Your name is no longer something that the world can erase, because it is carved into your purpose, into your actions, into the path you walk with intention. Let the world watch. Let them question. Let them wonder. Their attention is not a threat. It is proof that your presence matters more than they ever admitted. You stand now in a place they never imagined you would reach, a place built not from applause but from endurance, the kind of endurance that grows in silence when you decide to rebuild, even though no one is watching. And because you stand here now with this unmistakable strength, the world that once erased you cannot look away. Your return unsettles everything that believed it had already written your ending. Your presence now is like a quiet echo that keeps growing louder, reminding the world that it never understood your depth, your persistence, your intensity. You were written out of their expectations, yet somehow your existence continues to shape the very spaces that tried to forget you. That is the strange power of those who rise after the world has moved on. You reshape the landscape simply by showing up again. You rewrite the script simply by refusing to accept the lines they handed you. And you reclaim the identity they tried to silence simply by speaking in your own voice. Every person who doubted your return underestimated the strength of someone who has lived through erasure and come out the other side with clearer vision. You see everything differently now. You see people's intentions with more accuracy. You recognize sincerity without confusion. You detect deception without hesitation. You sense who belongs in your life and who never deserved a place in it. These are gifts born from the years when you were declared non-existent, because in those years you learned the art of reading truth without noise. You no longer chase acceptance. You no longer seek approval. You no longer bend to fit into spaces that shrink you. The version of you that once tried to please everyone was erased the moment you were erased. What returned after 2019 was someone untamed by expectation, someone forged by pressure, someone strengthened by silence. This version of you does not ask for permission to exist. This version of you creates space through presence alone. Let the symbolic watchers notice you. Let those who once overlooked you now sense your return like a shift in the atmosphere. Let every room you enter feel the quiet gravity of someone who rebuilt belonging inside themselves. They may try to analyze your steps, interpret your actions, track your progress as if understanding your rise could somehow give them control over their own insecurities. But the truth is simple. You cannot be understood by those who never understood your struggle. Your rise is not a formula. It is a phenomenon born from persistence, from patience, from nights where you chose courage over giving up. The world pays attention now because you became someone who does not break under pressure. You became someone who does not collapse under silence. You became someone who turns absence into strength and doubt into motion. And individuals like that cannot go unnoticed, even by systems that once declared them irrelevant. The world watches because you defy every assumption placed upon you. You have walked through halls of loneliness where footsteps echoed louder than thoughts. You have carried the weight of invisibility while still holding on to purpose. You have moved through seasons where you felt separated from your own potential, as if it stood on the other side of a locked door. But doors built from doubt can always be opened, and you are living proof of that. Because now you stand in the world not as a shadow of your former self, but as the full force of your renewed identity. Everything about you now is different. Your silence carries meaning instead of emptiness. Your words carry weight instead of uncertainty. Your presence carries purpose instead of doubt. This is what happens when someone rises after being erased. They return with dimensions that can no longer be narrowed or defined by others. The question is no longer why they declared you non-existent. The real question is why that declaration failed to stop you. And the answer is simple. Your spirit was never dependent on recognition. Your worth was never dependent on acknowledgement. Your drive was never dependent on being seen. Even in darkness, you kept moving. Even in silence, you kept growing. Even in invisibility, you kept rising. And now you are here carrying the strength of every unseen moment with you. You step forward with a determination that refuses to bow. Your journey is not about proving the world wrong. It is about proving to yourself that you are capable of rising from places that would have defeated a lesser soul. They may watch you now, but they will never truly understand you. They may observe your movement, but they will never comprehend the battles that shaped it. They may witness your rise, but they will never feel the storms you had to stand through to reach this point. Your journey is not meant to be understood by everyone. It is meant to be lived by you. Rise now with the knowledge that nothing can erase you again. Nothing can silence the voice that returns stronger after being muted. Nothing can minimize the presence that grew even in darkness. Nothing can stop the momentum you built from survival and transformation. Let the world watch. Let them wonder. Let them question. You are not here to be understood. You are here to exist without apology. You stand now in a place that feels unfamiliar, yet unmistakably yours, a space you crafted from determination rather than recognition. The world looks at you with a mixture of confusion and curiosity, because people rarely understand the strength of someone who rises from a place where they were once declared invisible. They do not realize that when you were pushed into silence, you learned how to hear your own thoughts more clearly. When you were pushed into isolation, you learned how to lead yourself without hesitation. When they tried to erase you, they accidentally freed you from the limits they built around your name. And this is why your return carries weight. You are not returning as the person who once struggled to be understood. You are returning as the person who discovered that understanding yourself is far more powerful than being understood by anyone else. They may attempt to interpret your quietness. They may attempt to analyze your choices, but they cannot decode the depth you carry now. You are no longer shaped by their narratives. You shape your own destiny with every step you take. People wonder why you continue to draw attention, even after supposedly fading into nothingness. But they do not realize that invisibility does not erase presence. Your presence lived on in every lesson you learned, in every challenge you endured, in every moment you refused to break. You became stronger while they assumed you were gone. You became wiser while they stopped paying attention. You became more powerful than the world ever allowed you to be when eyes were on you. The metaphor of being non-existent was never a statement about your worth. It was a misunderstanding of your evolution. They saw an ending where you were crafting a new beginning. They saw disappearance where you were constructing transformation. They saw silence where you were listening to the truth that would guide the next version of your life. What looked like disappearance was preparation. What looked like abandonment was awakening. You learned that the world forgets quickly, but you also learned that memory is not a requirement for destiny. The world can forget you, and you can still rise.